Well, next up we can learn about flutes. Flutes, along with kind of a lute and an early harp, are some of the oldest instruments to exist. This is what a predecessor to a flute might have looked like. In fact, this one comes from around the American Revolution and is called a fife. Fifes work the same way as flutes and piccolos, but as you might notice, as we started to look at in our clarinet video, some of these older instruments have less metal keys. The purpose of those keys allows us to play in between or chromatic notes, but they also let us reach buttons that our pinkies or thumbs wouldn't be able to reach. That's the reason that clarinet can play so low. It's because by pushing one button with my thumb, I could close a key all the way down at the end of the instrument. And here is what a modern flute looks like. With my one pinky now, I can control not just one, but 3 different keys, each of which is a little too far for my pinky to actually reach if I wanted to push something down there. Fifes played an interesting role in the American Revolution. They were some of the only members of either army who could call a retreat. And so if you played fife or drums in a drum and fife corps, you were usually safe because it would have been your job to signal your side to fall back if it had to be, so the other side knew not to bother you. These instruments make a sound using vibration, like any other instrument. However, in this case, there's nothing about the instrument itself that buzzes. Rather, we're manipulating air around a very sharp point at the edge of this embouchure hole. Flutes work the same way as recorders, and the sharp edge is called a fipple. Now, flutes can be so fickle because it's our job to find this little sharp angle. And that usually is one of the challenges for younger flute players, because it takes a very, very tiny opening in our embouchure, or the way our lips are formed near the instrument, to try and make a sound on the flute. Here's a lot of ado about this little fife, but let's take a listen to what it can sound like. You can probably tell if you have very good ears that the high notes tend to sound a little more in tune than the very low notes because they're intended to be shrill and project. Fife doesn't always have to play slow though. We can play quicker tunes like this. But I think it's easier to play those really exciting notes on the flute. That's what our flute looks like, and it works just the same way. I have a sharp edge over here that I direct the air towards, and based on how many keys I close, my pitch will get lower with more keys closed, or higher with more keys open. There are a few different registers on the flute, which can get unique tone colors. Down low, we have this kind of rich low end. The middle register can sound more melodic sometimes. And the high register is actually pretty easy to maneuver on the flute once you learn a different set of fingerings. And often all these registers are used together in real pieces of music, like this one by Mozart. But the flute is not alone in the flute family. Bigger flutes can make lower sounds, but there's also this little tiny flute with the Latin name Flutus Tinius. That's not a real name. It's called the piccolo, and piccolo means little. It's a little flute. If I were to play the same exact thing on the piccolo, it's going to sound a lot higher. But you're probably used to hearing something a little different on piccolo, played a few specific times during the year. Well, hopefully you know a little bit more about the flute than when you did a couple minutes ago, and you'll continue to join us as we look at the saxophones.